thank you very much, Dr. Sadiq Syed, for the wonderful presentation at Fletcher of monitoring of human rights and women's rights. And we're very excited to have you. So we're going to go ahead with this interview for the Fletcher Forum. The first question I wanted to ask you about, have you noticed any positive or negative trends regarding women's rights? More specifically, are there any women's rights issues the international community needs to pay more attention to? Or what are some key success stories in the battle to advance women's rights?
Thank you so very much, Phoebe. It's a pleasure to be here in Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy. And I also express thanks to the Dean and also to Rob and other colleagues for inviting me here and for hosting today's event. I very much enjoyed interacting with the students. They are brilliant and they showed their commitment and also the experiences they have in monitoring and also in interviewing the victims and survivors. Really, I'm impressed. Thank you very much. And coming to the women's movement, it has a long history. And throughout the history, women have suffered and also there is widespread discrimination. And it's been going on and there are a number of successes, there are a number of milestones that we have achieved, but there is still a long way to go. Like for example, there was times women were denied the right to vote, the women were denied the right to education, women were denied equal opportunities in employment. So there are countries still having these kind of difficulties, but there is a need and we have been prioritizing and there is tremendous success that has been made in some of the countries over the years. But nevertheless, there are a number of areas that we need to prioritize. For example, the political participation of women. In many countries, the participation of women in politics and the representation is still low. That's where the UN Women is strongly advocating and is working towards the empowerment of women and the women's leadership and politics. And secondly, there is also widespread domestic violence prevalent in various countries. That's where we need to work on to eliminate violence against women and also to eliminate all forms of discrimination against women as enunciated under the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination against Women, that is CEDAW. So that's where there are a number of issues and there is violence against women widespread in many countries. So we all need to work together. That's where the Secretary General's Unite campaign, through which we commemorate every 25th of the month as a Orange Day, is also significant. Thank you.
Great, excellent. So also you touched on a little bit in the presentation about the formation of UN Women and how it was a combination of other agencies. I was wondering if maybe you could touch on that a little more or talk about just the evolution of the UN's understanding of women's rights issues.
Thank you very much on that. Ever since the establishment of the United Nations in 1945, the UN has been very proactively working towards promoting gender equality and the empowerment of women. Within 1 year of coming into force of the United Nations in 1945, the Commission on the Status of Women is established in 1946. And the Commission has been very enforceful and also has been very proactive in promoting the advancement of women through the international conferences held in Mexico, in Copenhagen, in Nairobi, and in Beijing and other places. Besides that, besides the Beijing conference, the conference held in Cairo on the population and development were also significant in promoting the reproductive rights agenda for women. So it was really interesting, and there are significant developments that have been made over the years through the adoption of the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination against Women, and also the optional protocols to it. If countries ratify the optional protocol, the people or the affected persons and the organizations will have a remedy to approach the CEDAW committee for appropriate guidance and action. So there are a number of measures that have been taken, and the most recent one is the establishment of the UN Women through the General Assembly resolution of 2nd July 2010, and the UN Women became operational as of 1st January 2011. The UN Women is an entity which came out of merging of 4 entities of OSAGI, the DAW, and the INSTRA, and the UNIFEM. So it comes with a broader and wide mandate, and it also provides the opportunity for the UN Women to be able to work in a macro level on promoting gender equality and empowerment of women globally.
Excellent. And I know Professor Wilkinson talked a lot about the different areas of the world you worked in, and there are very variety of areas with, I'm sure, very different cultures. I was wondering if you noticed any interesting regional patterns, and do you think it's important for the work you do to be very culturally specific, or do you think that we can utilize one general model?
There are different regional perspectives there, and there are also models, but one model may not be appropriate for another. There are some common issues that need to be worked globally, like for example the domestic violence, and also related to political and the economic empowerment of women. But there are also some regional issues which are specific to the regions and which requires some specific strategies and appropriate actions. Like for example the female genital mutilation or the female genital circumcision, which is highly prevalent in Africa. For example, the domestic violence or the dowry related issues and the discrimination against the widows and the elderly in countries like India, or the child marriages and also the violence against women, or the discrimination of girls, or the low participation of girls into school like in countries like Afghanistan. So there are a number of regions and countries that require special attention and appropriate action. That's where the international community is working with the governments. And there are also opportunities to work with the governments. There are a number of success stories wherein the diplomacy and continued advocacy have helped immensely. Like for example, in addressing FGM in some of the countries in Africa, the UN together with the international community, government and civil society was able to advocate with the governments and take appropriate measures towards discouraging those who are practicing FGM. And similarly, there is also significant progress made in countries like India, Afghanistan, and also in Nepal and other places towards encouraging girls and also women's participation in decision making and politics. Like for example, Afghanistan stands 29th globally with regard to political participation and representation of women in parliament and legislature. So there are significant strides made, but yet we have a long way to go, and we need to all join together collectively towards promoting gender equality and the empowerment of women globally and also in the regions and the nations.
Great. And last question, do you think your experience differs as a man analyzing women's rights? Do you have any ideas about how to bring more men into the field? At our presentation, we had a few men in the room, but it's definitely great to get both perspectives. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that.
Certainly, I've been committed to the women's rights and the gender equality have been my passion, and I have a passion for working on it, and I have been working for the last over 20 years with the government of India and also with the United Nations in various countries. And I was also respected and rewarded for working on women's rights. I never faced any kind of difficulty of working in women's rights as a man myself. And I also received the most prestigious International Women's Day Award, which is awarded to 10 women annually in Darfur in Sudan. And in 2007, it was me, one of the recipients. There were 9 women and 1 man they chose. And I was the first non-Sudanese and a man to have received the award. So that shows that there is respect from even countries like Sudan, wherein the society is different. There is acceptability for the men to work on women's rights. And besides that, I also see the need, because traditionally it was perceived that it was the women who are working and advocating for women's rights in majority, though there are some stalwarts, some men who also joined and who worked traditionally and historically, but there are very few men who worked with hand in hand with men in promoting. That also gave the perception among some of the men, and culturally, that gender equality is to do more with women's rights or women's role or women's responsibility. So involving more men into gender equality and women's rights work is the most important and significant. That's what the Beijing Conference and the International Conference on Population and Development held in Cairo in 1994 emphasized on the participation of men and boys in promoting gender equality and empowerment of women. So that's where I see there is a number of agencies, and also the United Nations have specific programs towards involving men or working with men towards promoting gender equality, especially in some of these societies where there are cultures and traditions where there is men's attitudes to deal with the participation and advocacy by men jointly with women will have greater impact, and it will pave towards promoting gender equality. And there are more and more men coming forward to work on this, and I hope that there will be more increase of women and boys with the school programs and others, and with the media's role also is significant in this. So I'm sure we will have a better society wherein men and women work hand in hand and promote gender equality in the days to come.
Great, and hopefully you can serve as a role model for men or boys interested in this field to bring more into the field. So thank you so much, Dr. Sadiq Syed, for sharing your experiences with UN Women and human rights monitoring. The Fletcher School is glad to have you, and this has been excellent. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. It's my pleasure also to be in the most prestigious Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy, and I am honored to be here this morning. And thank you for facilitating the lecture and also the trainings.
Thank you.